Hello, my name is John Whiteman, and welcome to my CS6460 Educational Technology Milestone 2 project from Georgia Tech. Today I'm going to be talking about CocoScats, the contextually correct scattered substitution framework. So what the heck is that? It's my development project to help people learn foreign vocabulary. And what CocoScats attempts to do is try to automate the process of creating what I call contextually correct content used for grammar-free learning. I'm going to show a demo of this soon, so you'll have a better idea what I'm talking about. But going back to CocoScats itself, it's a Python framework, very lightweight, simple interface to integrate various plugins that will be used for the translation process. There'll be some for inputs, analyzers, translators, and outputs. Graphically, this is what it looks like. You take a source, you go through an input plugin, you get some output, then you go through an analyzer, then you go through a translator, then you go through an output, and whatever the output outputs, an application would probably use it then. If you notice, you are in between. You may or may not want to intervene, meaning that you may want to look what the output is for each given bucket, and if so, you may do some sort of process. Again, we're going to demo that. The framework is very, very lightweight, as I mentioned. It's very easy to take existing technologies, open source projects, and then piece them together to make something work. This is an example of the configuration plugin. I'm not going to go over this because I did talk a lot about it in the Milestone 1 presentation, but this is what you would create. We're going to do one for Wikipedia today. Once you create it, then you would add it to a workflow in the configuration file. And as a refresher for those who don't know how CocoScats started, imagine that you have two languages, L1, your native language, and L2, the language that you're trying to learn. In our case, the first sentence is L1, it's English, and L2 is in Indonesian. What we're doing, or what we're scattering, is scatter translations, and not the whole thing. We're just going to take a few, just enough, where we can still keep the context of what we know, what the actual context of the sentence is, because we understand it in its native L1 language, and we just put a few of these translations in there. And what it does is it gives us kind of another way of learning, in addition to flashcards and some other things as well. Grammar, well, it's not correct grammar-wise in some cases, and maybe in most cases, but we don't care about that. What we do care about is the vocabulary, and make sure that that translated word itself is the correct one. CocoScats as well can create other things like flashcards or complete translations or whatever. So we're going to do a demo now, and it's called the Eclipse demo. And on August 21st, 2017, which is about a month away from now, there's going to be a total solar eclipse. I live in Oregon, which is awesome, so we have an ideal vantage point. So let's pretend we have some friends coming from Indonesia, and what we want to do is impress them, so we're going to learn some Indonesian words that are related to eclipses. And we're going to use our CocoScats to go out, call Wikipedia, and we're going to create our content. So this is how you run it. Run Python in the script called run.py-uppercase W, which is the web interface. There's also a -uppercase C for the command line, but we're going to do the web one. That's what we did for Milestone 2. So we get a local web service that comes up. It has a RESTful API, so if you wanted to do extensions, these are coming from the configuration file that we had shown as an example. So let's go ahead and create some content. We start here. The first step is the configuration file itself. One of the things I do want to point out is we're gonna go out and we're gonna call Wikipedia. We're gonna use this run API, or its API. Then once we get that content from Wikipedia, we're gonna call our NLTK, our Natural Language Toolkit, and do some analysis with the tokens that we get back. Then we're going to call the Microsoft Azure Translator to do the translations from English to Indonesian. And then the output is going to be an HTML file, and it's going to go to this file right here. One of the things I want to show you about the Wikipedia plugin, though, some of the details here. So we have a class, is Wikipedia itself, but we have a method called run search input. And what we're going to do is we're going to search, just like if we went up on Wikipedia, we're going to search for the token Eclipse, and then we're not going to include all of the content, but we do care about the header and the summary. We may also want to include the URL just to double check, and we're going to limit our results to 5. If we type in Eclipse, a whole bunch comes out, and that could be quite time consuming. Finally, which is nice too, is that Wikipedia supports various locales, In this case, we're going to be searching in English, but if we decided to do a different language that's supported across the whole workflow, we can do that. So we can save it, and it goes off to the config.json file if we do make any changes. So if you remember, let's go back. Remember, the first phase is the input. Here's the input, and you see it's pretty quick. We went out to Wikipedia, we searched for Eclipse, and we got 5 different results back. And the first one is the one that we want. This is the one's talking about the actual Eclipse that's going to happen next month. The other one's about the software, the IDE. This other one is looks like a aerospace company name. Another one might be a novel. So we don't really want those, so we can take them out. We can get rid of that. And that's the part where I was saying is where we intervene as a person. We try to clean this up. We don't want the Wikipedia. We don't want the link itself. And we're going to take that too. We can also add our own content if we want to. So I'm just going to go this. Go cat go. I don't know why. I'm going to save it. This saves it to an internal framework file here. And then we're going to go to the analyzer, which is the next step. And this, again, is running the NLTK toolkit. And as you can see, the analyzer is doing a few things. It's counting instances or word frequencies. And as expected, Eclipse is on the top because that's what we're talking about. Shadow, moon, passing, all of these make sense. And then it tries to categorize the words into its parts of speech. And of course, the last piece is its frequency, as I mentioned before. And what you do, you don't have to if you trust it, but you probably do want to check to make sure that things are correct or not. One thing I do see here is that these 2 words are combined. It's probably an error on the side of Wikipedia. So we can just delete that. And we can look for other things. The CGG, I think I'm pronouncing that correct. I'm going to leave that in there. But I don't think there's going to be an Indonesian translation per se, or it may end up being the same. We'll find out. So I save it, and then I go to the next phase, the translator. And this is going out to the Microsoft Azure cloud thing. And the translator is doing a couple things. First, it's doing 1 for 1. So if you remember back in the NLTK, it's doing those 1 for 1. It doesn't really have any context, which is interesting. But it does find things. And here's the CGG, what I was talking about. It came back as the same as I expected. But other words we may want to look at and see if they are correct or not. There's some rejected words, but let me come back to this in a second. Here's the L1, and this is the input that we have, and here's my go, which was included in there. And then here's the L2. So I actually do a complete translation, everything, again, using the Azure. And the rejected, where I come up with that is if I don't find it in the vocabulary list and I don't find it in the L2 list, if I don't find that translation in both, I reject it. Does it mean it's correct or not? In some cases, it does a pretty good job from a probabilistic sense, a simple probabilistic sense, but does a good job of rejecting that really are sort of ambiguous. I do know, though, that moons is Bulan Bulan, so I'm actually going to put this back up to here. And that's a great thing. I can edit it and do what I want, and I can save it. And now let's go through the last phase. It's the output phase. And if you remember, I wanted it as HTML, but this doesn't look like HTML. Well, what we're looking at is these internal files that are saved by the framework itself. We want to look at the real output file. So let me bring it up to here. And this is the file. Let me double click it. And as you can see, it looks great. We have our translation. We have our scattered translation that we found based upon these analyses. It was very quick. Here's our L1, L2. Here's the vocabulary. We can even go off and parse this and make some flashcards from that. So that's CocoScats in a nutshell. And I hope to see you at the Eclipse, or possibly I won't see you at the Eclipse because it'll be too dark. Thank you.